In the previous section, we selected the host target network setup for a real-time FPGA system. By the end of this module, you will be able to detect the RT target and configure the network for a real-time FPGA system in the Measurement and Automation Explorer. So our next step after selecting the host target network setup is to detect the remote target in MAX, or the Measurement Automation Explorer. From now on, I'll just be referring to the Measurement Automation Explorer as MAX. Okay, let's walk through the steps of detecting a remote target, in this case a compact Rio. So the first thing we would do is we'll connect our compact Rio to a host PC through a network. Then we'll power up the compact Rio. If the compact Rio is not configured, its status light will blink slowly to indicate that. The next thing we'll do is we'll open up MAX, and then we'll take a look at the remote systems in MAX, which shows the devices that are connected over Ethernet. Here we see a screenshot of MAX. So notice to detect the RT target, what we'll do is we'll go to the remote systems and we'll expand it. Under remote systems, this is where our RT target will appear. So let's take a look at what that looks like in MAX. So here you can see on my host computer, I have opened up MAX, and I also have a compact Rio connected to the same network. So what I'll need to do to detect it is I'm just going to go over here to Remote Systems, and what I'm going to do is go over here and expand it. So let me click that. And once I've done that, MAX is now searching for some remote systems, and notice that it has found my C-Rio over here, and I can select my C-Rio now that it's been detected and take a look at some of the settings. Now that we've detected our remote target, the next thing we need to do is configure the target network settings. The recommended approach to configuring the network settings is to attempt to obtain an IP address automatically. So this will work if the RT target is connected to a network with a DHCP server, or if the controller supports the auto IP feature. So for example, if we set the RT target to obtain an IP address automatically, and we connect it up to a local area network, first it'll look and see if there's a DHCP server. If there is one, then it'll automatically get assigned an IP address. If there is not a DHCP server, then it'll automatically default to a link local address. However, if this recommended approach doesn't work, then you can also try to specify the IP address manually by using a static IP address. Here we see in MAX how you would automatically obtain an IP address for your RT target. First thing you would do is in MAX, you would go to Remote Systems and select your RT target. And then on the section to the right, you would go ahead and select the Network Settings tab. Once you've selected the Network Settings tab, you'll be able to configure a couple things. What I want you to see right now is over here, there's this item called Configure IPv4 Address, and you want to set that to DHCP or link local. Once you've done this, then click on Save. And once you've clicked the Save button, you've configured your RT target to automatically try to obtain an IP address, either from the DHCP server, and if it doesn't find one, it'll default to a link local address. If instead you would like to manually specify an IP address and use a static IP, this is how you would do it in MAX. So in MAX, again, you would go to the Network Settings tab of your RT target, and then this time on the Configure IPv4 Address item, you'd want to select static instead. Once you've selected static, you'll be able to manually configure what the IP address is going to be. In this case, we see that we have used the IP address of 10.0.5.2, and we've also manually specified the subnet mask 255.255.255.128. Once you've manually specified your IP address, then go ahead and click on the Save button, and it'll save those settings to your RT target. Now let's take a look at what this looks like in MAX. Okay, so now we're in MAX, and notice that over here, under the remote systems, we've already detected our real-time target. In this case, it's the C-Rio 9074. And once we've selected it, we see that we have a General Settings tab under our System Settings tab. So under General Settings, we see what the host name is. We also see the IP address. So now, after we've detected it, we know that we need to go to the network settings and configure those. So I'm going to hover over here, and I'm going to click on Network Settings. And notice right now this RT target is using a DHCP or link local address. So this is set to automatically try to find the IP address. Okay. So notice that there happens to be a DHCP server on this network, and the DHCP server has automatically assigned my real-time target an IP address of 192.164.2.143, and also a subnet mask. Now let's say I wanted to select a static IP address instead. Well, to do that, I would select this item right here and change it to static. So if I choose static, notice that now I can manually specify it and give it a static IP address. So instead of using this IP address, I could assign it a static IP address with 150. And I can also change the subnet mask manually if I want as well. And if I wanted to keep those settings, I would just have to go over here and click on the Save button to save it. So now you know how to configure the network settings in MAX for your real-time target. Now you can detect the RT target and configure the network for a real-time FPGA system in MAX. Next, we will add software on the RT target in MAX.